So let's talk about the Gilded Age in a little more detail here in Chapter 4, Lesson 3, and I want to continue to hone our focus we've been covering so far with this issue of not just why do people migrate, but also how is urban life different from rural life. And so what we're going to see here in the beginning is why people were coming to America, why people were coming to cities in America, and particularly these places that you could become successful, and then why people sometimes didn't migrate, right? Why people sometimes said, you know what, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm going to stay put where I am, or maybe that thing that is impacting me where I am is going to drive me someplace else. And I want to talk also then, once we kind of set this up by talking about three big philosophies of the Gilded Age in individualism, social Darwinism, and naturalism, we're gonna follow that up by taking a look at how urban life has far more visible class divisions, and we're going to examine those class divisions in some detail, take a look at what that means for the people that live there in different cities around America, and we're going to focus in the beginning here on these three big ideas of the Gilded Age that lead to people moving to cities from rural areas, and as immigrants, on top of it, moving into America's cities from other places: individualism, social Darwinism, and naturalism. So the Gilded Age itself is going to begin in 1870 and end in 1900. And what I need you to recognize is that this is a time of wonder. And we've touched on some of this already, right? We've talked about how during the Second Industrial Revolution, the Gilded Age was full of new inventions like the light bulb, which revolutionizes America. Widespread electricity revolutionizes not just America, but in the end, the world. But it was also a time of widespread immigration with people, millions of people moving from one place to another. Remember, just the city of New York had 3.5 million people come to it in only 40 years, half of one lifespan. But in the middle of this amazing modern miracle of kind of the new world in 1870 to 1900, you also have a lot of darkness, a lot of despair, a lot of filth, a lot of rot, because this age of the Second Industrial Revolution isn't just an age of wonder, it's an age of difficulty as well. That's why we call it the Gilded Age. We don't just call it the Second Industrial Revolution because, yes, it is beautiful. I mean, here's an example of something that is gilded. In this case, it is a table, and it is gorgeous. That is gold on the outside. I mean, it might, in some cases, just be a gold paint, but in many other cases, furniture like this was dipped in molten gold. So you have this precious, precious metal, this beautiful sculpture, just marvelous to look at. Kind of like all these new inventions, these revolutions in building and design and in society. But underneath it, it's still just cheap wood. It's still just a tree that someone cut down and did some fancy stuff with. Woo. And that's very much what the concept of gilded is like, right? Because think about it. You can look at America as this amazingly prosperous place during the Second Industrial Revolution, where America becomes, this industrial superpower. Remember, by 1900, America has the largest gross national product of any nation in the world. We're producing more than anyone else in the entire world by 1900. So we have this amazing civilization built on commerce, where our country is able to outproduce anyone else in the world. But at the same time, how did you get there? Now, this image that I blew up, right, it has you think that, well, we got there, we have all these awesome business people that help us get there, like your Vanderbilts and your Rockefellers. But look, we also have all these happy workers over here, right? These people kind of making a living, and everyone's working together to make America great, right? Land of the free, home of the brave, a chance for success. This is a campaign poster for the president that's running in 1900. That guy, or I should say not 1900, in 18... no, he's actually technically running in 1900, is William McKinley. This is a campaign poster for McKinley, showing that America is this, wonderful land of the free and home of the brave. But there's another way to look at this as well. And that's that underneath all that success, you've got these robber barons like Pullman. Remember we talked about the Pullman riots and the Pullman strike? You've got these huge robber barons using things like laissez-faire capitalism, the concept of monopoly and trusts, to force workers into incredibly low wages, and, in the case of Pullman, incredibly high rents in their factories, squeezing a worker for every last nickel and dime, making life terrible for them. So in this whole concept of gilded, you've got people coming to America because they think it's going to be like this. Awesome. But in reality, for many of those immigrants, it's going to be like this. Now, the idea that brings them here, that idea that makes them think it's going to be this wonderful world of equality and opportunity where everyone's going to work together and get ahead, that idea, as this slide up here shows you, is called individualism. And the idea here is that you have in your power the ability to change the world. Ralph Waldo Emerson at the time called individualism this concept of the individual is the world. In your power is the chance to do anything. You can make anything happen. And in the Second Industrial Revolution, in the Gilded Age, there are going to be people that buy into this and make this concept famous, and famous even to the present day. One of these guys, like Horatio Alger, is going to write book after book after book, and he's going to promote this idea of individualism, saying that no matter how poor you are, maybe you're just this little newspaper man who's risen from the ranks, or no matter how difficult your situations are, you can rise in society and go as far as your talents will take you. Like this man here, who's going to leave his home in rural America. He's going to take a train and he's going to head to the big city and do and dare. And when he gets to the big city, he's going to make it. Because if he can make it in New York City, he can make it anywhere, right? Look, the reality here, folks, is that we have a name for this, and you need to make sure you write this down. This is the American dream, folks. That you can work hard, and if your life isn't better, at least the life of your child will be better, but that by working hard, anyone can make it. And we hear politicians say this all the freaking time. Anyone can make it. I'm sorry, but it's just not true. It simply isn't true. It doesn't matter how much Horatio Alger is going to write his rags to riches books, like Risen from the Ranks or Do or Dare, because I'm willing to bet that everyone in our family has somebody that's worked their tail off, that somebody has worked incredibly hard, but that they haven't risen in society as much as someone else. The American dream does work for some people. That you can go as far as your talents and commitment will take you, that does work for some people. But it doesn't work for everybody. But the sexiness of that message is one that we still believe in. The sexiness of possibility, the sexiness of future, the sexiness of a life better than our parents, the sexiness of making it, of having the best of everything, that still drives us. Think about all the things you want in life. How many of them do you really need? But you want them because you can believe you can get them. That's individualism. It drives people to come to our country. But at the same time, not everyone makes it. So why is that? Why is it that not everyone makes it? If individualism is true, according to some people, then you can make it if you work very hard. But the evidence is some people simply aren't making it. So why is that? Because if you can't explain why some people don't make it, then individualism is a lie, right? You have to be able to explain why some people don't make it. Why is it that some people like Vanderbilt or Carnegie got wealthier than anyone else? And the answer they come up with is something called social Darwinism. Charles Darwin was a guy who came up with the theory of evolution. He says that people will adapt over time. And you can see a quote here from him that I'm highlighting right now. The struggle for survival, the fittest went out at the expense of their rivals because they succeed in adapting themselves best to their environment. It's the theory of natural selection. This idea that the strong who are able to adapt best will survive and everyone else will not survive. So while some people become incredibly wealthy through things like laissez-faire capitalism, where government gets out of the way to let the individual work hard, to let the individual push for success, while some can accrue gigantic piles of money, gigantic piles of wealth because they are the lion, they are strong, they have adapted, others, like the mouse, they fail to do so. Like all the people in your family, according to social Darwinism, who have failed to become wealthy or successful, they failed because they are not strong, because they are not capable of evolving. That's right. The people in your life that have not become successful, like everyone else, they're the feeble-minded. They're the reason why our society, according to social Darwinism, has juveniles in trouble, has domestic violence shelters, criminals, people that have to get arrested or live in shelters who require charity or extra emergency health care because they are the feeble-minded. These people, the ones who are incapable of success, they are the root of all of our troubles according to social Darwinism. Remember, if individualism is true, then if you would simply work hard, if you would simply evolve, if you would simply become better, then you could be successful. This is the reason why some aren't, according to social Darwinism, because you're simply not strong. You simply can't survive. Think about it. If you become ridiculously wealthy like Vanderbilt and Carnegie by crushing and smushing all of those other people, think about that slide, that previous picture on the previous slide where you see the poor worker getting squished by between low wages and high rent. If you can take advantage of people, well, you do that because you can, because of its laissez-faire. There's a reason why Pullman gets away with it, because it's the strong dominating the weak. Now, don't get me wrong, right? This idea of social Darwinism, it's not all about just eating up your rival. It's also about, well, now that we've become incredibly wealthy, we should, help those poor, indigent, helpless people that can't make it in individualism. Help the weak with the gospel of wealth. That we, as Americans, once we become wealthy, we should be philanthropists. We should help the poor help themselves. And that's the thing I want you to understand, right? Philanthropists like Carnegie, who creates Carnegie Library, Carnegie Hall in New York City, Carnegie Mellon University, and other philanthropists like him, they use their wealth to build schools and libraries and hospitals, but all of these things help someone help themselves. A school helps you learn. It helps you learn so you can become smarter and stronger and better. A library helps you do the same. It gives you access to information that you have to choose to use. A hospital can keep you healthy. It can give you an avenue to make sure that you're well so that you can continue to work and be successful. All of these things are better than charity. But you and I know that this isn't necessarily reality. You and I know that sometimes there are things that just keep you from being successful no matter how hard you work. The story of individualism is nice. Social Darwinism is a great excuse for it, right? You have all these immigrants coming to America, and some of them, a very few of them, make it and become Vanderbilts and J.P. Morgans and Carnegies, but so many don't. And social Darwinism explains that, but it's not necessarily the reality of the situation, because there are so many that do work that simply don't make it. Well, why is that? And the answer, according to some, is naturalism. In naturalism, you fail not because of evolution, not because you're simply not smart, or not because you're simply not the best, not because you're not the fittest. You fail because of circumstances. You think about all the people in New Orleans that worked for a lifetime to build houses and homes and careers and futures, people who tried to make things better, and then Katrina came along and ruined everything. Flooded out their homes, destroyed their livelihoods, drove them out of the city. Is that their fault? Or you think about people that have worked for years and years to build a happy home, to build everything, to create a family, to push them through college, and then a house fire caused by faulty wiring or a lightning strike destroys what they worked for. Is that their fault? Or what about the immigrant girl, like Stephen Crane's Maggie from a book that he wrote during the Gilded Age, who comes here, who works hard, who wants to get ahead, is in a factory, but everything she does, nothing works. No matter how hard she tries, nothing gets better until she is forced to turn to prostitution simply to eat, simply to survive. You think about all the people in your own lives who work hard, the farmers who struggle only to be hurt by drought or disease of their plants or pest infestations. Is it their fault that nature sometimes hurts them, that circumstances sometimes hurt them? I don't know. I think that those social Darwinists forget about the reality of circumstance, not evolution. So what we're going to look at here is how you have all of these people driven here, drawn here, because of individualism. And when they get here, they feel like they can make it anywhere. Horatio Alger's rags to riches stories prove it, right? You can make it. You just have to dare to try. And then once they get here, they see that, according to social Darwinism, some of them simply won't make it because they're not strong enough, they can't adapt, they can't work hard enough. They're simply not it. Naturalists say, you know what, it's not your fault. It's circumstance. You came here expecting one thing and got another. It's not your fault. What does that mean when it comes to what our cities look like? It means that we're going to have, no matter what you believe in, whether you believe in social Darwinism, individualism, or naturalism, you're still going to have more visible class divisions. And you're going to have incredibly poor people who need help, people who don't make it, whether that's due to laissez-faire economics or not, according to social Darwinism. How do you help those people? Well, you can use the social gospel movement, which is these ideas of charity and prayer and help and justice, these things that are biblical ideas that come from Christianity. And you can create organizations that still exist today to help people, like the Young Men's Christian Association, or the Young Women's Christian Association, or the Salvation, as in Christian salvation, Army, that rings its little bells every Christmas and asks for your change in the little red buckets. These groups are formed during the social gospel movement to care for the poor that come here, whether they're poor that are drawn here and expecting the gold of the Gilded Age or whether they get the rot inside. They're able to get help with settlement houses. Or, with the social gospel movement. And many of them expand from the social gospel movement into what's called the settlement house, that says, you know what, it's not enough just to help give people a place to shower or a place to learn a little English. What you have to do is actually give these people a place to live, give them a home, give them a safe environment, give them medical care, get them access to classes in English, help them actually adapt. Because if it's individualism you believe in and hard work, well, you need to give these immigrants a place to get it. That's your settlement house. If it's social Darwinism you believe in, and that some are simply the best and that some can survive, well, those are the folks that might rise up out of your settlement house to become the next Carnegie. But what about those who don't? Well, they might get help from the social gospel movement. Or whether you believe in naturalism that says, you know what, no matter how hard I work, I simply can't make it because of circumstance, well, you might need help at the social gospel movement, or you might need a place like the settlement house. Either way, these are designed to help those urban poor that begin to appear during the Gilded Age of the Second Industrial Revolution. I don't want you to think that it's all bad. There are definitely things that happen to try and encourage Americans. We covered 3 of them right here, right? The very rich versus the very poor, the gospel of wealth, and philanthropy, the social gospel movement, and the settlement house. I want to add a few things to that. Specifically, I want to add education and Americanization. This idea that when you bring all these people to America, they have their own cultures, their own identities, their own languages, their own beliefs, and that's fine. But America's business operate with English. America's businesses operate in a place in our cities where if you don't get education and you don't learn for yourself, you can't be successful. There's a reason why settlement houses taught English. There's a reason why the social gospel movement had to help the poor. It's because people didn't know where to go. They didn't know what to do. So you're going to see public education begin as a way to help people prepare for work in factories, as a way to help people pursue that individualist American dream. Right? You're going to see people who believe in social Darwinism say, well, you know, people want the tools to be successful. Let's give them schools. But you're also going to see people say, you know what? You want to be successful in America? You have to be like those people. You have to give up your culture. It's not just as simple as learning English at the Ford Motor Company as an example, where Ford was one of the first actual Gilded Age employers to actually Americanize its workers on purpose, to actually teach them English, to actually assist them with their education. But it's as far as forcing children to acquire American traits. And that's what I want you to understand. The process of making children acquire. Making. It's not an option. It's forced. Forced. This is the Carlisle Indian School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And in the years, the decades upon decades that it operated, children of Native American tribes were taken from all over our country, and they were forced to come here, and they were forced to give up their faith. They were forced to give up their beliefs. They were forced to give up their identities. They were forced to give up everything about their culture, even to give up their parents. And they were forced to learn English. They were forced to become Christian. They were forced to believe in only what Americans believed at the time. Forced to believe in the American dream. Forced to believe in social Darwinism. Forced to believe in these ideas of the Gilded Age. Forced. And that's what I need you to understand. This is not going to happen in rural America. This is going to happen in urban America. Now, it's not all bad. It's not all crazy. It's not all insane. I want to add one last thing. Urban life does have something different in the Gilded Age. There is definitely beyond just this concept of realism where artists want to portray the world as it is. It's more than that, right? You're going to see way more leisure time for people because people are going to be working less. Life is going to be better for people. Even when you're struggling, it is definitely going to be a little bit better. You're going to see all kinds of entertainment increase during the Gilded Age that had never been available to the average person before. So entertainment is going to be way more available in urban America than in rural America during the Gilded Age. Whether that's going to be going to vaudeville shows, which has all kinds of things like stage acts like Harry Houdini or dancers, or it's going to be comedy, sometimes 24 hours a day, where just a nickel you can see it all day long. You're going to see things like baseball and tennis and golf become popular, football, because Americans have more leisure time. So there's definitely an upside to this, don't get me wrong, but there's definitely downsides as well. All right, we're going to talk more about this in class tomorrow. So here's your update on the Gilded Age, and we'll do more with this as we go.